Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're really excited today that we get to have this amazing, beautiful person, Allyn Evans. She is the CEO and one of the trainers here at the Monroe Institute. For those of you who don't know, because I don't know if I talked about it last week, I am at one of the programs at Monroe right now, and Allyn was gracious enough to do this interview with us.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
like I said, I'm excited that we get to talk to her. Um, I have been at three different programs in Monroe now. The Gateway program, which is the program that you go to learn the basics, and Allyn can say more about this. And then I took a second program, and now I'm here at a program that is very interesting timing based on last week's podcast.
Hmm.
Last week's podcast, we talked about Reiki and we were talking about energy work. And Tammy had asked me if I was a Reiki master. And as Allyn heard in the program, my training, I was never called a master, but I have all the master symbols. I had all of the training and just never knew that I was a master.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I got here that I went, oh, I just asked if I could get this certification again so that I can actually feel like I can call myself that. So when I found out we were getting certified, I was like, thanks, guys. Thanks for having my back. Like, I was very excited. And I've just had this beautiful experience here. Thanks to Allyn and Brian, our two instructors for this program. So, welcome, Allyn. We are
Welcome.
very excited. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, how you got here to Monroe?
Sure. So I showed up in 2009, and 2009 was when I took my first gateway.
Mhm.
Now, I want to backtrack a little bit because I had read books for decades about the Monroe Institute, but it was pre-internet. I'm dating myself a little bit, pre-internet, and so I never really knew where it was. I knew that there was this little special place, and I knew I had been reading things about people developing their psychic abilities or intuitive abilities by coming here. So that was always in the back of my mind. But when I was doing this searching, I had a young child, stay-at-home mom role more, I did some consulting, but typically that was my focus. So it just wasn't a time, that I could go, okay, I'm ready to do this. So fast forward to 2008, I'm in a bookstore with my daughter, and I didn't really have an idea about what book I wanted to look at or buy. So I go to my favorite aisle. And of course, maybe you might not know this. In those days, where I lived, it was called the occult aisle.
Into that witchy stuff, huh?
But it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just normal. Well, not, I guess you can't say normal. It was just regular, I'll use your title, woo-woo stuff, but there's also science in there. Um, so I'm looking at that bookshelf, and there is this book titled The Journey of Robert Monroe. And I say, oh dear, this is it. And I had forgotten about it because, I just had moved on and not given it much thought. I get the book, I read it. By the time I finished reading it, I have bought the entire Gateway series that you do at home. And then I listen to an exercise every day and sometimes three, just went right through it. And it's a lot of exercises. I mean, at the time it was six series with six at least exercises in each series. So by the time I was close to finishing that, I was like, I got to go. I got to get there. I didn't care how. I didn't care if I had the money to do it. I just knew I had to go. So by March of 2009, I was there. So that was
Cool.
from November 2008 to March 2009. And
Yeah.
then, and this is interesting. Let's see, it was about 3 months later, they started the local chapter network effort. And that is the idea to have community groups all over the world so that when people came here and then they left, they might have a place near them where they could go and be with like-minded people
Yeah.
and meditate or do, whatever it is they'd want to talk about. So I don't get invited. They invited only the longtime people that were there, but I happened to get an invitation from one of those people because they had been with me at Gateway. So this is
Yeah.
only 3 months later. I get the invitation, I get permission to join, even though I'm a new person. And before I leave, I am the chair of the local chapter network effort.
So you just got thrown right in there.
I got thrown right in there. And then a year later, I'm an outreach trainer. And so that's a shorter program that you can take out into your communities that we have worldwide. And then by the following year, I was asked to be the co-trainer of the outreach trainers. And then it progressed from there.
Wow.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Monroe Institute and what exactly it is? Being someone who, I guess you could say, is a little newer to woo, a woo bee. There you go, Jen.
Yes.
I first learned about Monroe Institute from Jen, actually, and I'm just curious for others who might be interested in what exactly you guys do there.
Okay. And it's interesting. We cover a lot of ground here, but it was started by Robert Monroe or Bob Monroe, and he created a sound technology that helped people reach these different states of awareness by using the technology. So people could get to, and we still do it today, people can reach these really deep meditative states in minutes and seconds just by using the sound technology. So that's the basis of it. But then we built a program around it, and Bob created the Gateway, which is the program Jen took. That's the flagship program. And then he created a few more before he died. And then we've just continued that evolution. So I would say that's the main thing. Another key thing we're known for is the out of body experience, because that's how Bob Monroe put it out there to the world. He wrote books about his own experiences that describe that. But what we do here is much bigger than that. We encompass a lot of territory within those maps of consciousness, but we also have practical uses, concentration, things, sleeping, that we can also use the sound technology.
Spoon bending.
Spoon bending.
Just saying. That's a practical
Yes.
thing in my brain.
So it's really there are many programs you can take, and Jen's in one of them right now that demonstrate the power of the individual, and how important intentions are.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was interesting is how much, I guess, scientific research or equipment is used there as well, which I think is super fascinating for a lot of people, because a lot of this stuff people have to suspend their disbelief to acknowledge that this is really possible. But when you're marrying some of those actual images, and other things that you guys can do to show that things are really happening with people, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I think it helps people who need to take that little extra leap to understand that this stuff is really possible. That's really awesome. So you were just hooked from the book in the bookstore. That's awesome.
That's what got me here, and then it continued pulling me through. And then later, it was May of 2021. I was asked to be the chief program officer, and then in September of 2021, I was asked to be the interim executive director. And now I'm the permanent as of last February, so a little over a year. And now I'm the CEO.
Which we are happy about, because you are amazing. Everything that I've learned about you, you are amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I want to touch on that research and that science, because one of the things, Craig, the man who actually invited me to come here the first time, is a scientist. He was a scientist. I've known him since I was young. And when he invited me to come here, I will be 110% transparent. I was concerned about the science and technology piece of it, because you're doing different sound exercises and meditations that open up your mind and open up your capacity to receive and experience energy and different states of being. And with all of my experiences that I've had some scary experiences. So the first time I came here, I was terrified. I'm like, what are they putting in my head? Like, is this I have several friends who every time I've been here, they're like, do we need to put a tracker on your phone? Like, are you gonna be okay? Like, and it's kind of been a joke with some of the people here. We're like, it's not a cult, but like when people look from the outside in, they're
Yeah.
like, what are you guys doing? This is really weird. And so when Craig invited me, like he started telling me all about the research that they're doing. Like they have all this equipment, they have this copper room down in the basement that you can measure energy and you can do these things. And he's just so excited about it and just beaming.
Yeah.
And so when I came here, I was a little bit scared, but then I was like, okay, they're researching. And then I'm like, they have research behind this. And then I was like, wait, are they researching us? Like, so there was a little bit of concern on my part when I came. And once I went through and started experiencing what we were doing and recognizing that the research and the science is to help us better understand how we can expand our own experiences and like live in our space, assisting other people in being their greatest potential. Like it was really helpful for me. I still have those friends who check in and they're like, hey, you have the location on your phone, like just being funny. Um, but this time when I got here, I was really excited because they're doing biofield imaging during this course. And I wasn't sure what to expect and what that was. And there was a little bit of fear that came up in me again because I'm like, oh gosh, what if I'm the person in the class who doesn't show anything? Like there's nothing that shows up. I'm just this blank spot on the screen. Everybody else is glowing.
Test anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. And when they started going around and doing the imaging in the room, it's like this camera that it takes pictures. And if you want to pull up that image,
Yeah.
while I'm talking about this, that would be awesome. So they went around and they took images of everybody and they also took video of everybody. And then Brian, who is the other program instructor, he is a trained surgeon. He's a brilliant man and he's used to reading medical technology and reading medical.
But he uses it in a clinical setting. So he's
Yeah.
read thousands and thousands of these.
Yeah. And so he started showing, and this picture came up on the screen, and I almost started crying because it doesn't show you as well on the computer screen here, but like he was talking about confluence, which I remember this word because he said it many times, but
Yeah.
confluence and how like normally you have like your chakras, your energy centers that show up, and in people who are not expanded, you'll just get these small circles. And like in all of the images that he was showing from people who've been doing these exercises and meditating, because we meditate multiple times a day while we're here, it was just this beautiful like openness. All of the chakras are like huge and all flowing together. And so on the screen, like if you saw this in person, like my whole heart chakra is like the whole chest.
It's like,
And just like all of my chakras down the front of my body are all together as one big open expanded chakra, just everything melding together.
let's
But
look at
then,
this.
yeah. And then my third eye was just wide open. And this was in the middle of doing Reiki sessions, group Reiki sessions. And that's what made me almost start crying was seeing that my third eye was open. And Brian is a very he likes to joke and he goes, yeah, if you look at this, you'll notice that she has no intuitive abilities at all. And I started laughing, but then I almost started crying because I was like, this shows like, so all of those people from my childhood that like came in and they're like, oh no, that's not a thing. Like this is proof in my mind that
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy person. Like things are really happening.
Right.
And this
And we have
technology is beautiful.
and we have slides that we show during the presentation that are capture energy coming out of hands and other demonstrations like that. Crystals have energy, for example. And so you really do go from I believe this to I know this.
Yeah.
It's a huge
Do you
shift that
ever
takes
bring animals in? I know that's a weird question, but I feel like they just constantly are shooting out all this energy.
yeah.
I wonder
We
if
don't
they
bring
had really
them.
cool
We don't bring them
images.
to Right. We don't bring them to our program, but Brian has cats, and so there he has some images of
Oh,
cats.
cool.
He
I'm
has
just
one,
curious. I don't know why that popped into my head.
Jen, the whipped cream one. Do you remember
Oh
seeing that
yeah,
one?
yes.
His
Yes.
cat has an addiction to whipped cream,
Mhm.
and so when they squirted it and put it in a bowl for the cat, his crown chakra and his heart chakra, and the heart is on the back of a
That's
cat,
awesome.
lit up.
That's
So
awesome.
It was amazing to
That's so
see. And it was just
cute.
like you could tell the cats like they love me.
yes, I
They
love
love
it.
me.
So,
Yeah.
do you find that there's like a big like difference in the way that this imaging shows different people? Like Jen was mentioning that sometimes people were kind of like just getting into it. Maybe it's a smaller image, it's not quite as open. Do you see a big difference in people?
What we see though is everyone that we're imaging, at least me, because Brian's the one that's imaged people in clinical settings and prisons and in other settings. I've
Mm,
only seen people here. So when you come here, you're open. And so
sure.
I would have to say no, but Brian has seen many, many references to this. And there's a slide we showed a couple of days ago that showed someone who had a really small heart chakra. So when you are in different phases of your life or different places, yes, you can have small, and then work like this, from at least from my perspective, watching everyone helps it grow and develop.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think one of the most impactful slides that he showed for me to see the contrast was he showed an image of somebody who had been, they did the imaging and she was in a state of, I don't know if it was psychosis or it was a mental health image. And you could just see like the pain in her eyes and you could, like her eyes were black with red. I don't know if it was a her or him, but
It
it
was a she.
was,
Mhm.
yeah, like the center of the eyes were black with red around
Mm,
energetically, and then just like dark spots along the side with red around them. And it was so different from the images that we were seeing of our energy fields being so open.
mm,
And in that moment, I recognized that this could be something that we could utilize when we're working with clients or we're working with patients. I mean, he's using it in a clinical setting in hospitals to see like what's going on with people who have disease. And so from a practitioner who's working with people's energy or a massage therapist who's working with the physical body, like these images could help us
Mhm.
show people what's going on
mm-hmm.
and show them their progress in a different way and give them tools, different tools, energetic tools, so that they can expand.
Mhm.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
That sounds pretty
So
amazing.
I am very curious, Allyn. You said at the beginning of this program that you really like working with Brian, and I'm very curious about that interaction because he is coming from such a scientific medical space.
Mhm.
Like, were you drawn to that, or is it just because he's funny and goofy?
Which he is. I'll tell you the story. So we used to have a bed and breakfast place up here, right near the Institute, and they would have Friday night dinners. So even if you weren't staying there, people from around could come and eat dinner. And the owner was a amazing chef, and it would be 7 course meals with wine pairings. So I'm at one of these meals, and Brian appears. And as I'm watching him, and he's in the social element, so you can imagine, Jen, it's a little more over the top. And at some point in during the meal, I go, oh, to myself, oh, if I could only work with someone like him or with him one day. And I made that wish. And then a couple of years later, I can't remember exactly how we connected, but we ended up where he wanted me to help him write curriculum for his programs.
Okay.
And so I started being the sound expert, the one that knew the Monroe technology and the way to set up a Monroe program. And then I stepped into the Reiki side of it as well.
Okay. So you brought up the Monroe Sound technology. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is
Mm-hmm.
and how that works with people's energy field and how that works with expansion?
Yeah, so the sound technology that Bob Monroe created, uh, it started to put people to sleep because he at the time was interested, and this was in the it was probably in the early 70s. He was interested in doing something besides radio, and he had spent a whole lot of time in radio, had 48 shows. Several of them were very famous at the time. They were story time and game shows. And so here comes TV that's really going into everyone's homes and all of that, and cable, and he's trying to decide if he wants to make a change from radio to that. So he goes, I've heard about this thing called learning while you sleep. I'd like us to try that. So he had a lab already. He brought people in, and they couldn't get people to go to sleep. So then they started using the sound, just sound. He was working with it. He was used to it from radio days to help induce sleep. So that's how it started.
Okay.
Then in the like 78, I think it was, he decided he wanted to get more scientific with it. And he hired two part-time researchers who were young men at the time, Thomas Campbell, who now has written The Theory of My Big Toe, I think is the book he's known for. And then another gentleman, Dennis Minerich. Dennis read an article about binaural beats. It was discovered in 1839 by a German scientist. And this effect is something that happens when one frequency is played in one ear, another frequency is played in the other. And then the brain is trying to balance it all out, so it subtracts. And then that's what leads the brain then to whatever mixture recipe that's been created. So it doesn't automatically take you there. It can lead you there. But because of the way we set up the meditations, most people are in a good space to be led there. And then the technology, once it can put you there, and it's a very complex recipe. It's not that we don't just go, okay, we're going to put you in alpha, which is a brainwave state, for 1 hour. It's a lot more complex because we're going to take you through several different cycles, and we'll have several different things going on. Maybe there's 3 layers happening, alpha, theta, delta, all at the same time. And also you can hold it for a long period of time. Practice meditators who've been practicing for 25 to 30 years can only do it, according to some research, only hold this state for 15 minutes. With the sound technology, we, beginners or expert meditators, can hold it for as long as the exercise is running. So it can take you to very powerful, deep states. We also train you to be alert when you're in these deep meditative states. So the experience doesn't always pass you by because a lot of times you have a lot that goes on. You are just not consciously aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another benefit of the training. You learn how to remain alert so that you do.
Yeah. I loved the gateway experience. One of the exercises that we did was trying to get to these different focus levels, these different states of being when we went outside on a walk or we were in other settings other than we have these little like our bed is in an enclosed area so that we're enclosed and encapsulated.
It's called a check unit, and it stands for controlled environmental, controlled holistic environmental chamber.
Yeah, so you're like in this little teeny tiny cabin bed by yourself listening to your exercises. And so when I'm in that state, it's like it's dark. You have a curtain that comes down so you're in a dark space. And when by the end of each one of the programs I've been at, I'm having these beautiful experiences where if I open my eyes in my check unit, I can actually see the energy moving. Like I can see the different colors. That's my experience. I see things with my eyes open a lot of the time, but in the check unit, it's just this beautiful, like I can see my own energy field. I can see the colors moving. And when they had us come out of that environment, I was a little bit concerned. I'm not going to be able to get to these focus levels. I'm not going to be, but because we had been taught and we knew the process of getting to these other states, when we started walking outside of our check units, it was like, oh, I can connect with this energy at a deeper level. I can put myself into this meditative state. And I am somebody who meditates every morning. Thank you to my fiance. He's very structured with his meditation. Um, and when I come here, my meditations are very different. My brain isn't all over the place. My brain isn't going, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. And my body can relax and I can just go into that meditative state. And it has a lot to do with the sounds and the way that, like, the second that they start playing the exercise the sounds, it's like, what is happening to me? Because my whole body just goes, oh, okay,
Ready to
we're
go.
doing this.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
And that's the other thing. We train you to have steps that help you reach these places so that you don't have to have the sound technology to do it. So you can learn that and then again do it without it. But most of us like to keep using it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and they have this really cool thing called the Expand app, which,
Yeah.
Allyn, I would love for you to talk about that because it's a way for
Yes,
people to bring
please.
the technology into their own home.
Right. So the Expand app was launched July of 2021. And it is near and dear to me because I'm one of the people that helped build the content, wrote it and writing and voicing. And I'm on the committee. So I've been very involved with the process. But what we've created is a way for you to have this app on your phone, of course, and we have up to 90 exercises or meditations. We call them exercises. And then we also have a timer feature. So you can just pick what frequencies you're wanting to work with or purposes. It could be creativity, it could be focus. And then you get to select the background. And then you can set how long you want this to go. So that's a really nice feature too. And we're working on the where you can be away from Wi-Fi feature. So that should be coming out this summer. So like if you're flying or just out in the country somewhere and you can't get a good signal, you should be able to download before your trip.
That's awesome. I need that for the
Cool.
plane
Yeah.
when I'm sitting next to that person who really doesn't like to travel and they're like all ramped up.
And it's also, we have a community group feature. So you can communicate with your fellow classmates that you've come to programs with, or people that have an interest like you. So Tammy, even though you haven't been here, you could get on the app and you could find a group that has a subject matter that's interesting to you and join, and then you could be involved in the discussions and the meditations.
Oh, cool. So I'm sure we'll be able to hopefully share some type of link that people can find that Expand app.
Yes.
That sounds very interesting. That was going to be my question too, is do you have to go to the Monroe Institute to use it? And you answered that already.
No.
So that's
Don't
awesome. We'll
have
make sure
to,
that.
but it's a
But
really
you
good
should go anyway,
experience.
right?
And
Well-
Tammy, you need to come with me next time.
Yes, Tammy. I'm offering you an invitation right now. But
Well,
we have
thank you.
online courses and we have virtual courses. And the virtual, what we call virtual real time. So it's like you would do the full gateway experience like we're doing here on Zoom in real time with two trainers. And then you would just, when it was time to do a meditation, you would just leave the computer, go do your meditation, then come back. So we've got that kind of format. And then we've got a self-paced, where you just do it really on your own without much trainer assistance.
Oh, okay. So when you take a program at the Institute, it could be anywhere like a week, what Jenn is doing to, is there longer programs? Is there shorter stuff? What type of?
So we have our
programs do you have?
typical program is what Jen's doing as far as length. So you come in on a Saturday by dinner time on Saturday and leave after breakfast on Friday.
Okay.
We do have some weekend programs or some 2.5-day programs, but not very many that are residential.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
Oh, and we have scholarships.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's
Talk about
I'm
that. I
making
didn't know
notes.
about this.
Yes, we have scholarships. We have, so people will message our registration person, so registration at monroeinstitute.org, and ask for a scholarship. And so we'll send an application, and then you fill it out according to your needs. And it's more of a self-reported application. So that means you tell us we're not doing this massive check on you.
No IRS background
Yeah,
checks.
right. It's not any of that. It's just you tell us why you want to come, what your what your income is, and then we can look at it and make a decision. And then we also ask you, what can you afford?
Okay.
So that we don't have a flat amount, because what I think about that is, if we just say, okay, it's only 500 for everybody, well, 500 might not be enough to help. So we take it on a case by case basis.
Nice.
Wow. I did not know about that. I'm really excited to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right now it's our best kept secret. And the reason it
Not
is
anymore.
because right. The reason it is because we don't have huge funds to do this. And then number two, we don't have a lot of staff. I think people think we have a lot more staff than we do, which requires, if we have it advertised on the website, that's going to take a lot of time reviewing, talking to the individuals. So that is our goal. We're going to be there one day. We're going to be in that place where we can advertise it, where we have a scholarship manager. We're just not there yet.
Okay. Okay.
Well, it sounds
Well,
like you're really working hard to get everything going in that direction.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
cool.
yes. So one of the things that you put in like your interview questions with us is that you're a Mind Valley author.
Yes.
And I'm curious about that. I know what that is, but I don't know that all of our listeners would know what that is. Can you talk a little bit about more about that as well?
Sure. Mind Valley is a educational platform that covers a lot of different subject matters. And they have an app, and actually we have a channel on their app. Monroe Institute does. So it's our meditations. And then they offer educational programs. And they offer those online, but they also go to places. I was invited to Paris last year, which was a lot of fun, to
Yes.
present in Paris. And I've been invited to Estonia for this summer. So I've got to see if I can make that work. So they do, live presentations as well. But we have those meditations that we've put on their app channel. And Luigi Scambriella and Luigi's one of our trainers from the UK, we are going to put together a quest, they call it, to help people work through the meditations. Yeah. So
Cool.
we meet next week to get it
Okay.
started post-production. I mean,
That's
pre-production.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want our listeners to know about you or about Monroe?
Hmm. I think I would like to go back to something Tammy said about our tools, because yes, we do have research. We have a full-time researcher who used to work at the University of Virginia in the Department can never say it, Perceptual Studies. We have a part-time researcher who is part-time at UVA and part-time with us. And so we are doing subtle energy experiments. We are looking at the efficacy of our sound technology as we make innovations. And we are always innovating. We're now looking at a 3D experience with the sound technology. We will be moving toward the AI stuff, where we can have the visual component. We also have Mind Mirror, which is a 8-channel EEG that you can look at what's going on in the brain while you're listening. And so that's another tool. People can take a course specifically to do that. It's not in every course, but so if you really want some kind of evidence that something is happening, that's a course you can take and have your own EEG readings while you're having these experiences. So it's definitely a way, as you put it. I think it was Tammy that said this, that it's a way for us not just think it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
it's happening. It's like, oh, this stuff is real.
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
on here. And then we also have evidentiary ways to show it, and remote viewing is one of those. We have
Yes.
people who come here and take remote viewing classes, and they what we call nail a target, and so they get a first place rating or a second place rating. So they are not shown an image. They're told, and we tend to use the random generator that will then pop up an image. And so the trainer doesn't know what it is, the participants don't know what it is, and then you're asked to perceive it using remote viewing protocols. And then the participants are graded. Now, in our discovery program, which is the one we also use the mind mirror technology, we had one class that was 100% success.
Wow.
Every participant, and it was evaluated by an outside association, a remote viewing association.
Wow.
It wasn't just our trainers going, "Oh, you're first place." It was validated, by a third party.
Wow. Will you talk a little bit about what remote viewing is for people who might not know what that is?
So remote viewing is a way to, let's just use a very simple like description of this, or an example of this. So there are remote viewers who will look at lottery tickets, for example, or stock market. So it's like you can go past, future, and you are getting information. And it's not they're very specific protocols to follow, and it's about getting pieces of information instead of so say an intuitive person, if you're asking them to look at the apple, what is that over there? It's an apple. It's a red apple. The intuitive person might go, it's a red apple. The remote viewing person is looking at the pieces and the parts. It's red. It's on something flat. It looks like a circle. So you're not trying to label what it is. You're describing the aspects of it, and then eventually it can turn into something for you. And remote viewing has been used by our government to locate people who've been kidnapped, for example, and they're putting together the pieces of the area. Like they might get numbers, and that would be the street address. They might get roses, and there's a big rose bush right by the building. So it's identifying pieces of something and then putting it together.
Yeah.
It sounds, like what people would describe as psychic abilities.
Well, it's a little, I mean, it would certainly lend itself to being described that way, but it is a technique and protocol that opens people up to look at and receive the information in a different way than, say, one that would label themselves as a psychic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. My first experience when I came here for Gateway, we got the treat of listening to Joe McMoneagle speak, and he was the first remote viewer for the U.S. government, if my memory serves me correctly.
Correct.
And he has written several books on his experiences, and we all just stood there with our mouths open going, I can't believe the information that he can pull in and the experiences that he's had. And he is so sure of his abilities. And there are so many of us that are in this space of, we receive information a lot of the time, people who do have psychic abilities and do have extra sensory abilities. We go, oh, well, I'm not so sure. And I've had these experiences. It's been qualified so many times. Like, people tell you that it's real, but we still are a little bit like, and listening to him speak, because he does follow very set protocols and he does have very structured ways of figuring out, like, okay, how accurate is this? He's just so sure about everything that he puts out there. Like, if it comes out of his mouth, he's sure of it. So it was beautiful to listen to him speak and tell us about his experiences.
That's impressive.
He's done some things live on TV shows. So
yeah.
Well, it all makes a lot of sense to me. Somebody who came from a very a background that was very fearful around this type of stuff and very, very science minded. When kind of my mind started to open to all of this kind of stuff. And it occurred to me that none of this is really inaccessible. Like once it finally clicked for me that, if everything's made up of all these little energetic explosions, then why couldn't we access more than just what we can like physically see in front of our faces or hear or, whatever the case may be. So when I hear stuff like that, it's really fascinating to me and kind of reinforces the idea that these things are really accessible to everybody. You can learn how to do a lot of things that could be considered, I don't know, like special gifts. And I'm not saying people don't have special gifts, but certainly there's a lot of stuff that we can do that we don't even understand that we can do. And that's pretty cool that there's a place that people can go to learn this kind of stuff. And the use of technology, science, and this intuitive, woo-woo realm all kind of mixed up into one is pretty cool.
And I have witnessed in myself and in others how much just working with the technology, just working with the energies opens you up to perceive in ways that you hadn't before. And that's really what was driving me to the Monroe Institute years ago, because I wanted to be more intuitive and I didn't know how to do it. And I was reading books by people who were telling me how to do it. And after probably book number 3, I thought, wait a minute, this person has reported in this book that they were psychic the minute they, had a memory or an idea that they could retain. So that means like when they were 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I'm 20 something and I don't know that. So I'm not, and so they're trying to teach me how to be that when they didn't have to learn it the way I'm going to have to learn it.
Yeah.
So that's what kept driving me. And so when I got here, that's what happened. I mean, I am now clairaudient, and I wasn't that when I first started. And clairaudient means I can hear, and it's not hearing voices. It's just hearing, and a lot of times it's my own voice that I'll hear, but it's just, or it'll be like a thought that pops up into my head. And I've learned, Jen, like you said, to trust it. And I write it down in my journal, and I'll be danged if 2 months later that didn't happen, kind of thing. So you just have to start documenting it, look for verification so that you can trust it more and keep trusting it more, and it grows.
Yeah.
The Monroe Institute sounds like a good way to allow people the ability to believe it's possible, which is kind of like it sounds like your experience too. It's fascinating to know that there's so many things that we can be trained. Like we have so much power and untapped potential that we can be trained to use. That's really, really cool. So you didn't start out feeling very woo-woo in your life, I imagine, then?
No. The one thing I could self-identify as would be an empath. So I knew I was an empath. And an empath is someone who is just picking up all the emotions in the room. And until you are that, until you learn to control how you pick it up, it can be very painful. We also teach some tools around that too. How, we work with our own energy so that I'm no longer, I'm still empath, but it no longer impacts me in the way I can be in a room with someone who's very upset and it's okay. Whereas when I was younger, that was not the case. I had these severe stomach aches that they identified as IBS, because at the time they didn't know what it was, and it wasn't. It was because I was an empath. I was just taking it all in.
Wow.
I feel that I've shared with Jen and probably on here before. I had a big, doesn't seem like a mind-blowing moment, but it was to me in massage school when we were talking about energy, and I realized that I could care about people, I could do all these good things for people, and I didn't have to take any of their stuff on me. And I was like, what? I don't have to feel like this all the time. That's amazing. So it sounds like you had this, you knew that you had some type of innate ability to connect, but it sounds like you've done amazing things since then. And obviously have gone to the right place to
Yes,
learn
I
how
will
to
agree
do
with
it.
that.
That's awesome.
So, you guys, in the interest of time, because I know Allyn is very, very busy, because she is also going to have to go back and help work with these students that are going to be waiting for her after her next thing. Allyn, I have the hardest question for you of the day.
Okay.
What is your favorite program at Monroe?
Oh, okay. It is an interesting question because I look at it three ways. One, I have like you can have a favorite because of the group
Mhm.
that arrives with you, whether you know them or not. You can have a favorite because of the experiences that you have in the check unit or in the meditations. And then you can have a favorite where you like the program. You just like the program. So my favorite program that I liked was X27.
She's like, wait, not me.
I've never taken energy medicine. I've only trained it. You asked me. My favorite is energy medicine, but the ones I've taken, X27, which is an exploration of one of the focus levels. And then my favorite, as far as the people that showed up, was Heartline. And that's one that you're working on the heart. And my favorite exercise experiences was also Heartline.
Wow. Well, it
So,
looks like I might have to take that one now.
yeah.
No, maybe that's one we can take together. We'll have to see how this all goes.
Sweet.
You have to
Well,
take Gateway first to go to
yes.
Heartline. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Well,
so I know you had mentioned when we had asked some questions earlier that you guys were willing to do a little special offer for our listeners.
Yes.
Could you let everybody know about that, and we'll make sure the information is in the description.
Okay. So it's about the Expand app, and we will be providing a link that you can click on, and then you install the app on your phone, and then our tech team initiates it for you. So we would, once they initiate it through the website to our tech team, it would be launched. But first, they have to install it on their
Okay.
phone.
yeah.
It could be an
Perfect.
app, that could be an Android or Apple.
Okay.
That's
Great.
a really good offer for our listeners. I'm very
Yes.
excited for people to start listening.
And
Yes,
that'll
absolutely.
be 6 months.
6
6
months.
6 months. Cool. Well, thank you, Allyn. Like I
Great.
said, I am honored that you took the time to meet with us today. When I asked you if you were willing to come on, I was not necessarily expecting that you'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. And so when I messaged Tammy, I was like, Tammy, you'll never guess. So I am really honored that you took the time to talk to us and
Thank you
like
so
share
much.
your knowledge with all of our listeners. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to sometime meeting you in person.
Yes, yes, you
Yeah.
will have to come here.
Yes.
And I have a whole nother day left before Jen will be heading back.
I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll hear all kinds of fun stories.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
thank you everybody for listening. We will see you again next week.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.